Now focus on bit of economic situation. Mr. Trump is known to be slightly unpredictable. So, and in fact, 10 days back, I was reading one of his statements where he almost threatened BRICS countries that dare you try and dethrone dollar from its supreme position. It'll result in catastrophic, results. My question is, he is very clear, even his election campaign was totally focused on making America great again. In such a scenario where his priorities are so clear, black and white, where does India stand? If we keep geopolitics aside and purely look at it from trade and economy point of view, where does India stand? He has a bigger war probably to fight with maybe China, but where do you see India?
Well, I mean, his threat to the BRICS was not actually unpredictable. There he's actually basically saying, I will not tolerate any other economic power or any other economic mechanisms threatening the supremacy of the dollar. I mean, ultimately, the way President Trump is going to pressure the world is by using America's economic power. Now, these are the tariffs, which he can use against countries. It's sanctions, which he can use against countries, including the BRICS. But he's also using the dollar supremacy. In other words, the fact that the dollar is the economy of the world and also the financial networks like the SWIFT banking system that support it. So he's basically saying that I'm not going to even allow a group of countries to come up with ways around going around the dollar. And India is obviously part of the BRICS, and I think that there is now a consensus within BRICS that there needs to be mechanisms that allows countries around the world to be able to resist unilateral American economic pressure. After all, countries, even including Saudi Arabia, Turkey, etc., are showing interest in joining the BRICS exactly because all of them think they might be only one step away from being subject of America's economic wrath. In some ways, India is not a target of America's economic, wrath. As I mentioned, it's first China, then it's Europe. But if India continues to rise at the pace that it is, if it does become part of the top 3 economic powers in the world, it's at some point in time is going to be on America's economic radar. It isn't right now, so it's benefiting from larger economies being subject of America's economic wrath. But down the road, this is an issue for it. And that's why India, too, will have an interest in BRICS developing alternate mechanisms to ward off America. Now, you talked about unpredictability. That is definitely the case. In fact, we really don't know which Mr. Trump is going to arrive in office. People are reading into his policies. They're reading into expectations. He's talking about putting 60% sanctions on China, but yet he's invited Mr. Xi Jinping to his inauguration. So these are sending very, very sort of contradictory set of signals. And also it depends on the people he's put in charge, what kind of actually policies they will adopt going forward.
Right. But now, if I bring in geopolitics, strategically, do you think Mr. Trump will be focused much more than his first term on blocs like Quad or AUKUS simply because of the current geopolitical environment that we are in and the prevailing, I would say, constantly evolving scenario between Russia and China, between Russia and North Korea?
So I think his top priority is, as I mentioned, is geoeconomics, which is to assure that the United States will be not challenged as the premier economic power in the world, and the tools that America has in guaranteeing its position will not be challenged. But having said that, there is ongoing geopolitical issues that day one coming into the office he has to address. And I think his very first priority will be the war in Ukraine, which is to end that war one way or the other. Now, whether he's going to succeed or not is open to question. But if he succeeds in ending the war in Ukraine, it will be also a first step in peeling off Russia from China. And then the question is, if he gets to the Middle East, I think the issues of the western part of the Middle East, which is the Arab-Israeli issue, Syria, Lebanon, Gaza, is different from the issues on the eastern part of the Middle East, which is maintaining peace in the Gulf and perhaps arriving at a deal with Iran. This is really the open question. Is Iran now weakened, having been pushed out of Syria, open to talking to the U.S.? And is the U.S. interested in talking to Iran? And is there a deal there? If there is a deal between Iran and the United States, even a sort of a ceasefire deal, it will be an effort to also peel Iran off of China as well. And then also, obviously, that will have benefits for India because it might remove some of the sanctions that have prevented India from benefiting from its own investment in Chabahar. But if you thought about this, then the two sort of narrow geopolitical deals will help Trump's overall geoeconomic goal of isolating China. And then, issues like AUKUS, Taiwan, etc., will further serve America's interest of isolating China economically. And in all of this, in the short run, there are benefits to be made by India in Iran, vis-a-vis Russia, but also in East Asia, because India sort of sits in the middle of all the little geopolitical issues that ultimately, the ultimate goal of which is to weaken China economically, which also will provide room for India's economic growth.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to Mirror Now.